One of the most famous and lasting stories of all time is that of Moses and the Hebrew Exodus from Egypt. It's one that is celebrated among multiple religions and is an especially important part of the Passover holiday. Of the number of adaptations out there, one of the most popular is The Prince of Egypt, and for good reason. Produced by DreamWorks Animation, this was an ambitious animated film that brilliantly succeeded in telling this story. Jeffrey Katzenberg had initially tried pitching The Exodus as a potential animated movie at Disney, but the idea was rejected. When he started DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen, all three powerful producers felt this should be one of their inaugural animated films. Work began on The Prince of Egypt as the perfect showcase for the artist who would make up the talent at DWA. 3 directors were hired to lead the project. Simon Wells was a director at Spielberg's recently closed Amblimation, while Steve Hickner served as a producer on all 3 films created by that studio. Meanwhile, Brenda Chapman arrived from Disney, where she was head of story on The Lion King, and also played a key creative role on Beauty and the Beast and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Katzenberg and the creative team really sought to make sure the film was authentic and respectful, and brought in Jewish, Christian, and Muslim consultants to provide notes, which the filmmakers followed. I imagine one of the trickiest tasks with a film like this is how to tell this epic story in 90 to 100 minutes, and I think they succeeded. The most important parts are kept intact, and the characters, especially Moses, are well developed and properly defined. From the opening moments, you know The Prince of Egypt is going to be something different than the traditional Hollywood animated feature, especially at the time. The movie never shies away from the treatment inflicted on the Hebrew people while they were forced to build the pyramids and other monuments in Egypt. Thus the drama and the urgency is there. They also made sure not to sugarcoat some of the atrocious acts committed by the Pharaoh and Ramses. The heart of the movie is Moses and his journey from a spoiled prince to a savior who wants Ramses to let his people go. The film manages to show his evolution and growth and the effects some surprising revelations have on him. Another key element of The Prince of Egypt is the difficult sibling relationship between Moses and Ramses. The early scenes portray their brotherly affection for one another as well as their differences, which allow for the later scenes to have even more impact. Throughout the movie, Moses clearly does not want to cause any trouble or distress for Ramses. He just wants him to set the Hebrews free, but Ramses remains stubborn. As voiced by Ralph Fiennes, Ramses also becomes a layered character. He's obviously the villain of the story, but the filmmakers made sure to give him the needed depth. He's brought up to continue the established order of his father and keep the Hebrews working on the pyramids, and does not want to bow down to a god he doesn't believe in. One of the movie's strengths is showing how this relationship breaks down. The story of the Exodus has its many famous set pieces: baby Moses floating in his basket on the Nile, the burning bush, the 10 plagues, and the parting of the Red Sea, to name a few. All of these are represented in the film, with the directors, animators, and visual effects department giving them the required power. The plagues are particularly important, as each piece of devastation rains down on Egypt. This is primarily shown through a musical montage, and it's a breathtaking sequence. God could be quite brutal in the early religious stories. Remember when God felt humankind needed a restart and flooded the entire world? In this case, frogs, locusts, and boils plague Egypt, and Ramses still stubbornly refuses to free the slaves. The 10th and final plague, the killing of the firstborn, is also given the right chilling effect, as a mist goes through Cairo. Even though this finally does lead Ramses to change his mind, we still see the remorse on Moses' face, and his belief that this all could have been prevented earlier. The parting of the Red Sea is another magnificent scene. There's the right level of excitement as Ramses and his army comes rushing towards them, and then Moses places down the staff and the water separates. The artist took advantage of the latest in computer animation technology to portray this astonishing event. Then there are the songs written by Stephen Schwartz. Each song serves an important part in the story, and in exploring the emotions the characters are going through. The filmmakers successfully weave them through the narrative, and they are all fantastic. One example is the lullaby sung by Moses' mother before she sets him off. It comes back a number of times throughout the film, with Moses even humming it at one point, long before he finds out the truth about who he is. The part where Miriam sings it to Moses on their first meeting as adults plays an especially big role in his character change. Deliver Us captures the hardships faced by the slaves, while Through Heaven's Eyes is an upbeat song performed when Moses sees the world in a new light after running away from Egypt. Then there's When You Believe, the Oscar-winning song that plays when the Hebrews finally start their journey back home to Jerusalem. It's a beautiful song that portrays their elation at finally being free and starting life anew. I love how the song starts slowly and then builds and builds until almost everyone is singing it. Schwartz even included some verses in Hebrew. The score by Hans Zimmer is also excellent, with him writing appropriate themes for the dramatic and emotional scenes, as well as the more action-packed moments. As I said, the Prince of Egypt portrays its subject matter with the needed seriousness. There is humor in the movie, of course, but always in moments that call for that lightness, like when Moses and Ramses are messing about with each other as youngsters, or when Moses meets his future wife Zipporah again in the desert. While it was common for animated films at the time to include cute animal sidekicks, this movie understandably avoided that trope. We do get a few camels and sheep with funny faces, but that's about it. One common animated movie device that is used by the Prince of Egypt is the all-star celebrity voice cast. DreamWorks hired a lot of big names for this, including Val Kilmer as Moses, Sandra Bullock as Miriam, Patrick Stewart as the Pharaoh, Steve Martin and Martin Short as the Egyptian High Priest, Jeff Goldblum as Aaron, and as previously mentioned, Ray Fiennes. However, these never become distractions, and Fiennes is particularly good as Ramses. Another element the filmmakers were careful with was giving the characters proper skin tones, and they made sure they had historically accurate skin colors as well as facial features. As one of DreamWorks Animation's first productions, The Prince of Egypt established it as a studio willing to take risks. Even over 20 years after the release of this movie, the film's still impressed with the creativity the artists bring to every project, whether it's an epic fantasy or a colorful comedy. Curiously, while The Prince of Egypt was a success at the box office, the only other time DWA tapped into religious text was the direct-to-video film Joseph, King of Dreams. I would love to see them adapt other famous biblical stories like Adam and Eve or Noah's Ark. In any case, The Prince of Egypt is a wonderful film with a clear respect for the story and its importance to a great many community, as well as being about the continuing perseverance of the Jewish people. It also shows animation's ability at telling any story and is a fantastic musical too. It remains one of my favorite animated films and my favorite version of the Book of Exodus. See you next time.